Greetings and love to all of you. Sam had a good job and a beautiful home until one day he heard this voice in his head saying, "Quit your job." And he thought, "But I like my job." But this voice in his head was insistent, "Quit your job." So finally he quit his job. But then he heard this voice in his head say, "Sell your home and put all the money in the bank." And after a while, he obeyed the voice again, moved into a small apartment, and then he heard the voice say, "Take all your money out of the bank and catch a plane to Las Vegas." Well, he had gone along this far, so when he was getting off the plane in Vegas, he heard the voice, which is coming through loud and clear now, say, "Go to Caesar's Palace." As he walked in the door, heard the voice again say, "Go to the first roulette table." Got to the roulette table and Sam heard the voice say, "Put everything on black 33. So Sam put everything out on black 33. There was a spin of the wheel and it came to rest on red 7. And Sam heard the voice say, "Darn." Our topic this evening is intuition and trust in God. Intuition and trust in God, guiding lights in a chaotic world. And I'd like to talk mainly about intuition, because intuition is that voice of God within us, and as we begin to experience God through intuition, then we will definitely trust Him. Master said, "God's voice is silence. Only when thoughts cease can one hear the voice of God communicating through the silence of intuition. That is God's means of expression. In your silence, God's silence ceases. He speaks to you through your intuition." There's an interesting relationship between the soul and the ego that will help us to understand intuition. And this soul and ego are two senses of I-ness that we have within us. And of the soul, Master said, the soul is only a witness. It does not engage itself in the operations of the human intelligence, mind, and senses. It is an observer of the workings of cosmic nature in the body. That's the soul. It's only a witness, an observer. Regarding the ego, Master said, ego is when the soul, the image of God in man, forgets its true divine self and becomes identified with the powers of perception and action in the instruments of the body and mind. The Master goes on to say that the ego is the conscious nucleus of I-ness around which all human thoughts, feelings, and experience revolve. So the ego is this sense of I-ness having to do with this creation. But the real I is that pure knowing of existence, the soul. Master said, anything you can subtract from your consciousness without losing your sense of I-ness, you are not that. It's interesting, isn't it? Anything you can subtract from your consciousness without losing your sense of I-ness, you are not that. You must peel off these titles from the soul. I think, but I am not the thought. I feel, but I'm not the feeling. I will, but I'm not the will. What is left? The you that knows you exist, the you that feels you exist, through the proof given by intuition, the soul's unconditioned knowing of its own existence. So these are the two senses of I-ness that we have within us. That ego that relates to this world, and in the sense of I-ness, that pure knowing of our absolute existence, the soul. But getting back to intuition. What is intuition? The soul is individualized universal consciousness. It's individualized Christ or Kutastha consciousness. But how does this power of the soul help and benefit us? One of the qualities of the universal consciousness is omniscience. And the soul also has that quality of omniscience. But how is that omniscience going to help us? When we're in ego consciousness, and that's a quality of the soul, there has to be some link. And this is the key to understanding intuition. Intuition is that link between the omniscience of the soul and the ego. This is how Master expresses it. Intuition is the bridge between the soul and the ego's thoughts and sensations. Intuition is the bridge between the soul and the ego's thoughts and sensations. So intuition is that bridge, linking that omniscience of the soul with our ego consciousness. And Master also said, intuition is like a light, a flame of knowledge that comes from the soul. It possesses all-sighted power to know all there is to be known. And this flame of knowledge, it works in things big and small, spiritual and mundane, because it is just pure knowing. My first Kriya ceremony was in Miami back in 1971. And you have to remember, that was during the hippie era. So when I showed up for the Kriya ceremony, I wasn't really dressed in suit and tie. It was a little more casual. So, but as I was going in, I noticed this usher, and he had on this light tan suit. And I thought, he really looks dapper. If I ever had to wear a suit, I'd want one like that. Well, I never thought of it again because I didn't ever think I would wear a suit. But months later, I moved to Hollywood and started attending Hollywood Temple. And after a while, I thought, well, I should really get a suit to wear to temple services. But not having any money, I went to elderly devotee that was there at that time, a Miss Carter. And she was responsible for receiving and distributing used clothing and other items. It was part of our voluntary league program. And Miss Carter prided herself on her intuition. And she was always sending little things to Brother Bhaktananda, whether it was socks or a folder for his papers, and saying, you know, I just thought you may need this. Well, the interesting thing was, Brother would often confirm she was right. So when I told Miss Carter I needed a suit, she said, I think I have just the right suit for you. And she walked over to a couple of racks of suits, and she pulled out a suit that was exactly like that suit that the usher in Miami had been wearing. As a young devotee on the path, I was really impressed with Ms. Carter's intuition. I had forgotten all about the suit, but Divine Mother hadn't forgotten. It was almost like she was saying, well, if he's willing to wear a suit, I'll give him one he likes. Recently, I was talking with a devotee I've counseled with for a number of years. And she said, Brother, last night I woke up in the middle of the night, and as I was laying there, I just looked in the spiritual eye, and it was the most beautiful, brilliant light I've ever seen. She said, not just in the spiritual eye, but through my whole head. What has Ms. Carter's being able to pick out just the right suit and this devotee seeing the light of God got in common? They're both intuitional experiences. Again, that intuition doesn't think in terms, it doesn't think, it's just knowing. So it's not judging, well, this is important, this is not important. It works in all areas. We all have this bridge of intuition within us. We all have hunches, intuitive feelings. But for most of us, that intuition seems very vague and unpredictable. It's kind of like inspiration or understanding that just like clouds kind of floats in and out of the consciousness. But Master said that that link, that consciousness connecting the soul and the ego can be developed. He says that the intuition can be developed. However, with all that we have to do, why would we want to make a priority of cultivating intuition? Well, again, let me read something Master says about intuition. Every man inherently possesses something of this power, but in most, it is undeveloped. This undeveloped intuition is a crystal placed before the soul, producing a double image. The soul itself is the real image. The reflection is unreal, the ego, or pseudo-soul. The more undeveloped the intuition is, the more distorted the ego image will be. When human life is guided by this false identity, which is brought about by the presence of undeveloped intuition, it is subject to all the limitations and false notions of delusion. A chaotic existence of error and its consequences is therefore inevitable. Guided by the ego of undeveloped intuition, a chaotic existence of error and its consequences is inevitable. But if we have developed intuition, on the other hand, we make better choices. We suffer less. We're happier. There's a harmony in our lives. We realize this harmony within our lives even when the outer circumstances are chaotic.